This week, I'm celebrating 1 year on YouTube. A year ago, I decided to start this YouTube channel to share what I've learned about cooking and baking and have some fun in the kitchen and share it with you guys. And the very first video that I made was pumpkin pie. So I thought it fitting 1 year later to make another pie. This is also going to be a Diner Dishes edition from Baker Square. Baker Square is a restaurant that used to be in Southern California where I grew up, but they have since closed all of those locations. I think they still exist in the Midwest somewhere, but I'm not sure. But anyway, it was a place kind of a little bit like Marie Callender's where you could get whole pies. And one of the pies that they made was caramel pecan silk supreme pie. It was my grandma's favorite, and when Baker Square closed, I wanted to make this pie for my grandma on her birthday, so I did some research, learned how to make it, and it is the pie. It is so decadent and delicious. It has a layer of caramels and pecans in the bottom, a layer of chocolate French silk filling, and then a topping that is cream cheese whipped cream. You can also make it with a traditional butter pie crust or a graham cracker crust, or even Oreo crumble crust. For this one, I'm going to make a traditional butter pie dough crust because I find it to be pretty easy and it's something that I do all the time, so it's kind of I just do it without even really thinking. Anyway, celebrating 1 year on YouTube, Diner Dishes edition, the best pie in the world. I'm excited, so let's go. This pie is made of 3 layers, none of which needs to be baked. But since we're making a butter pie crust, we will need to bake the crust and do what's called blind baking, which means to bake the crust with no filling. Since each layer of the filling will need to rest in the fridge to fully cool and solidify, we'll need to use the crust as a strong foundation to build on. There are a few techniques I'll show you to help that can be applied to any other pie baking as well. We've made pie dough before on this channel a few times, so I'll go through this part fairly quickly. I'll put links in the description below if you'd like to check out other videos on pie dough with more detail. We're going to pulse in the food processor 1 stick of unsalted butter cut into cubes, 220 grams of flour, 13 grams of sugar, and a pinch of salt until we get a sandy texture, and then slowly add 5 tablespoons of ice water until a soft dough ball forms. As soon as the dough ball forms, we're going to immediately stop the food processor, remove it, and wrap tightly in plastic wrap, setting it in the fridge to allow it to fully re-solidify around 1 to 2 hours. Once firm, we'll roll it out and add to a pie plate, leaving about a ½ inch of excess dough hanging over the edge all the way around and trimming off the rest. There are a few tricks I use here that I learned from watching Claire Saffitz, who is also a great person to follow on YouTube if you'd like to learn more about baking and baking techniques. Instead of pushing the dough down into the bottom of the corners of the plate, we're going to gently lift it around and let it sink down on its own, gently pressing it into the corner. Then fold the edge of the pie crust in under itself to create a nice clean edge, pressing it down gently to anchor it to the pie plate. We'll be blind baking the crust, which means without filling, and want to make sure it's well baked and not soft or raw in any spots, which typically happens in the middle of a pie plate or where the pie dough is thicker. Making sure to get as much contact between the dough and the pie plate will ensure an even transfer of heat in the oven and prevent any soft or unbaked spots of dough. Then to create a pretty classic pie crimp, we'll use a finger and thumb to crimp around the edge of the pie like this. I usually have little bits of scrap dough left over and I don't like being wasteful, so I make a little Danish out of them. I also happen to have leftover cranberry sauce, so I filled the dough with some of that and baked it at 350 for around 20 minutes until they were golden brown, and they made an excellent little treat with some coffee for breakfast. Then, since we're blind baking the crust, we'll need to add foil and pie weights before baking. Cover the inside of the pie dough with a layer of foil, and then add pie weights, uncooked rice or uncooked beans, to weigh down the middle of the pie. If you don't weigh it down, the center will puff like a pastry and make for an uneven foundation for the pie filling. Then we'll bake for 25 to 30 minutes at 425 degrees. Take it out of the oven and remove the foil and pie weights. Then turn the oven down to 350 and bake for another 30 to 35 minutes until deeply golden brown, and then allow it to fully cool. Once our pie crust is nearly cooled, we can start making the caramel pecan layer for the pie. For the caramel layer, we're going to melt 7 ounces of caramels in a sauce pot with 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter, a 1/4 cup of heavy cream, and a pinch of salt. Stirring until the caramel is fully melted and the mixture is smooth and creamy. Then remove from heat and stir in 1 cup of roughly chopped pecans. Pour into the pie crust and let it rest in the fridge until fully cooled and solidified. This usually takes a few hours because it's still warm from being in the pot. Next, we'll make the French silk layer. You may have heard of French silk pie. Also, this layer is basically French silk pie filling, just smaller because it doesn't take up the entire pie. But it adds chocolatey, moussey texture and it's delicious. There is some controversy over French silk pie though, because it's traditionally made with egg to help create a moussey texture, but since it's a cream pie, you don't cook the filling, which means the egg is raw. There are ways around this, which we're going to use so we're not eating raw eggs. Heating eggs to 160 degrees is the minimum needed to kill bacteria, including salmonella, which most people associate with raw chicken and eggs. If you're interested in learning more about eggs and this subject, check out my All You Need to Know About Eggs video. I'll put a link in the description. For this pie, we'll need to heat the eggs to 160 degrees, but we need to do so gently and without the egg firming up because we'll still want to mix it with our other ingredients to make the French silk layer. So we're going to do this using a double boiler method and constantly stir the eggs until they reach 160 degrees and then immediately remove it from heat. If you've ever cooked scrambled eggs in the morning, you know that once they start to scramble, they cook fast. So keeping the eggs moving and the heat low and slow is the name of the game. Once they're heated to 160, we'll add 1 cup of sugar, half a stick of unsalted butter, melted and cooled, 2 ounces of unsweetened chocolate, also melted and cooled, and optionally a 1/4 teaspoon of vanilla extract for a little bit of extra sweetness. Stir until well incorporated and smooth, and then we'll pour it on top of our caramel pecan layer and let it rest in the fridge until fully cooled and solidified. For the final layer, we'll be making a cream cheese whipped cream. We'll start by making a basic whipped cream, which is just 1 cup of heavy cream with 2 tablespoons of sugar, whipped on high until stiff peaks form. Then add 4 ounces of softened cream cheese, an additional 1 tablespoon of sugar, and a pinch of salt. You can use either granulated sugar or powdered sugar. The powdered sugar will be a little bit sweeter, so if you use powdered sugar, you might want to cut down on that measurement just a little bit, but I haven't noticed a massive difference either way. I recommend switching to a paddle attachment when you add the cream cheese if you're using a stand mixer, as it seems to handle the cream cheese better than a whisk does. Although you may have to stop and scrape the cream cheese down a few times depending on how soft your cream cheese has gotten. The colder and firmer the cream cheese is, the harder it will be to mix. Once everything is well mixed and stiff, we'll add this final layer to the pie. You can decorate the top however you would like, obviously, but I usually top it with a drizzle of caramel and a dusting of chocolate. Decorating is not my strong suit, to be honest. I'm more focused on making things that taste good rather than look pretty, but a simple drizzle of caramel is easy to do with a squirt bottle or even a spoon. Once complete, this pie can be covered and kept in the fridge for up to 1 week, though it usually doesn't last that long. Here's to 1 year on YouTube. You can put a layer of just regular whipped cream on the top, but I find that using the cream cheese whipped cream adds a tang flavor. that is very welcomed with all of the sweet chocolate flavors that are happening. It balances everything out really, really well. Oh man, it's so good. Okay, I have to stop. I have to stop eating it. I'm gonna eat the whole thing now. Anyway, I'm very happy to share that pie recipe with you guys, and I'm very happy to be celebrating 1 year on YouTube. Thank you to my family and especially my husband who has supported me. And thank you to you for watching and subscribing and liking my videos. I started this channel with the notion that I have learned so many things about cooking in the kitchen, and I get excited when I learn something and I want to share it with other people, so YouTube was a way to do that. So if I have helped just one of you, my goal has been achieved. No, that sounds super cheesy, but it's true. Hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving with your family or by yourself. And I hope you cook something very delicious. And I hope you try this pie because it's real good. If you like this video or learned something, give it a like. If you'd like to learn more, subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye. I'll tell you what, this pie is the best pie in the world.